dass der so schnell frei. Unfall. Unfall.
The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, each drop racing down the glass like tears the sky couldn't hold back. Marco Valentino stood motionless, staring out at the gray expanse of Central Park below, his reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. The city looked blurred, distorted, much like everything in his life had become over the past 2 weeks. Behind him, the penthouse stretched out in cold, minimalist luxury, white marble floors, designer furniture that no one sat on anymore, abstract art that Elena had chosen, back when laughter still echoed through these rooms. Now, the space felt like a mausoleum, beautiful, expensive, and utterly lifeless. "Mr. Valentino," came the tentative voice of Mrs. Chen, the nanny he'd hired 3 years ago. "She still won't eat. I tried the chicken soup, the toast, even the ice cream. She just sits there." Marco's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. 32 years old, and he'd built an empire that made powerful men nervous. He controlled shipping routes, real estate portfolios, and legitimate businesses that generated millions. He'd negotiated deals that would make seasoned executives sweat. He'd stared down threats that would break lesser men, but he couldn't get his 6-year-old daughter to eat a single bite of food. "How long has it been?" he asked, though he knew the answer. He'd been counting every agonizing hour. "4 days, sir," Mrs. Chen replied, her voice cracking slightly. "Since the funeral. The doctor called again. He says if she doesn't eat by tomorrow, we need to consider the hospital. Intravenous fluids, maybe a feeding tube if—" "No," Marco cut her off, finally turning to face the older woman. His dark eyes were bloodshot, ringed with shadows that makeup couldn't hide. He hadn't slept properly since Elena's car had skidded off that rain-slicked road in Westchester. "No hospitals, not yet." Mrs. Chen wrung her hands, her professional composure crumbling. "Mr. Valentino, please. I don't know what else to do. She's wasting away. She won't talk, won't play, won't eat. She just sits in her room holding that photograph of her mother." Marco ran a hand through his dark hair, disheveled from the countless times he'd done the same thing over the past hours. He was still wearing his suit from this morning's meeting, a charcoal Italian cut piece that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But the tie was loosened, the top button undone, the armor was cracking. "Where is she now?" "Her bedroom. Same place she's been all day." Marco nodded slowly, then walked past Mrs. Chen, his footsteps echoing on the marble. The hallway to Sophia's room felt longer each time he walked it. When had everything become so difficult? When had he lost the ability to reach his own daughter? He paused outside her door, decorated with a wooden sign that read, "Sophia's room," in cheerful pink letters. Elena had painted those letters herself, back when Sophia was 3, back when their biggest worry was whether Sophia would sleep through the night. Marco knocked gently. "Sophia? Baby, it's Papa. Can I come in?" Silence. He opened the door anyway. The room was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon light. Sophia sat on her bed, a tiny figure in a white dress that was now too big for her shrinking frame. Her dark curls, so much like Elena's, hung limp around her pale face. In her small hands, she clutched the photograph, Elena laughing, holding Sophia at the beach last summer. Both of them sun-kissed and happy, a lifetime ago. "Hey, princess," Marco said softly, approaching the bed and sitting down carefully as if any sudden movement might shatter what was left of his daughter. "Mrs. Chen made your favorite cookies. Chocolate chip. They smell really good." Sophia didn't look up. Her brown eyes remained fixed on the photograph, her thumb tracing the outline of her mother's face. Marco felt his chest constrict. This little girl, his entire world, was slipping away, and he didn't know how to pull her back. In his world, problems had solutions. You negotiated, you strategized, you applied pressure where needed. But grief? Grief in the heart of a 6-year-old who'd watched her mother's casket lowered into the ground? There was no negotiating with that. "Sophia, you need to eat something." He tried again, keeping his voice gentle despite the panic clawing at his insides. "Just a little bit. For Papa. Please." Her lips barely moved. "Mama made better cookies." The words were so quiet he almost missed them, but they hit him like a physical blow. 4 days of silence, and these were the first words she'd spoken. "I know, baby," Marco whispered, his own voice breaking. "I know she did. Mama made everything better." "Where did she go, Papa?" Sophia's voice was small, fragile. "Everyone says heaven, but where is that?" Can we visit her there? Marco closed his eyes, fighting back the burning sensation behind them. How did you explain death to a 6-year-old? How did you make sense of something that made no sense at all? We can't visit, Princess, but Mama's always with us. In here. He gently touched her chest, right over her heart. She lives in all the happy memories we have. Every time you remember her smile or her laugh or the way she tucked you in at night, that's Mama still being with us. Sophia finally looked up at him, and the devastation in those young eyes nearly broke him. But I want her here. I want her to make me breakfast. I want her to read me stories. Her voice dissolved into quiet sobs. Marco pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried. She felt so small, so breakable. He'd promised Elena he'd protect their daughter from everything. But how did you protect someone from grief? From loss? From the cruel randomness of a wet road and a moment's loss of control? They stayed like that for a long time. Sophia crying into his shirt while he held her, one hand stroking her hair the way Elena used to. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on the windows, and Manhattan moved on with its busy, indifferent life. When Sophia's sobs finally quieted, Marco pulled back slightly to look at her. Will you try to eat something, just a few bites? You're getting so weak, baby. Mama wouldn't want you to hurt yourself like this. Sophia shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Food doesn't taste right anymore. Nothing tastes like it did when Mama was here. And there it was, the impossible problem. How did you argue with a child's grief-altered perception of reality? Marco stood up, careful not to jostle her. I'll be right back, okay? Don't go anywhere. He found Mrs. Chen in the kitchen preparing yet another meal that wouldn't be eaten. The private chef, Roberto, was there too, looking frustrated and helpless. She spoke, Marco announced, though there was no relief in his voice. 4 words. Said her mother made better cookies. Roberto, a stocky man in his 50s who'd cooked for elite families across Manhattan, looked genuinely pained. Mr. Valentino, I've tried everything. Every recipe Mrs. Elena liked. Every dish the little one used to enjoy. Nothing works. It's like she can taste the absence. The phrase struck Marco as oddly profound. Tasting the absence. That's exactly what this was. Sir, Mrs. Chen interjected. The doctor was very clear. If she doesn't eat by tomorrow morning, we need to take her to the hospital. She's already lost weight. Her body can't sustain this much longer. Marco leaned against the kitchen counter, suddenly exhausted. I know. He looked at his watch, 3:47 p.m. I'm taking her out. Both Mrs. Chen and Roberto looked surprised. Out? Where? Mrs. Chen asked. I don't know yet. Anywhere. A change of scenery. Maybe if she's somewhere different, somewhere without all these memories, she might. He trailed off, not even convincing himself. Is that wise, sir? Mrs. Chen asked carefully. Given your position? Taking her out in public without proper security arrangements? Marco's legitimate businesses were known to everyone, but his other dealings, the ones that required discretion, that existed in the gray areas of the law, those were carefully hidden behind layers of corporations and proxies. Still, enemies existed, rivals who might see a grieving 6-year-old as leverage. I'll take precautions, he said, but I can't keep her locked in this penthouse while she wastes away. We're going out. 20 minutes later, Marco had Sophia bundled in a warm coat. Though she'd protested weakly, he'd changed into more casual clothes. Dark jeans, a simple black sweater, leather jacket. Less conspicuous. More like a regular father taking his daughter out for the afternoon. In the private elevator down to the parking garage, Sophia leaned against him, her hand small in his. She still wouldn't let go of the photograph, clutching it against her chest with her other hand. Where are we going, Papa? She asked quietly. For a drive, he said. Maybe we'll find somewhere nice to stop. Get some fresh air. Would you like that? She shrugged, the ultimate 6-year-old gesture of ambivalence. His driver, Thomas, had the car ready, a black SUV with tinted windows. But Marco waved him off. I'm driving today, Thomas. Take the evening off. Thomas looked uncertain but nodded. Yes, sir, please be careful. Marco helped Sophia into her car seat in the back, then slid behind the wheel. As they exited the underground garage onto the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan, he realized he had no destination in mind. He just drove. The city scrolled past the windows. Fifth Avenue's luxury shops, their windows dressed for the upcoming holiday season despite it being only October. Columbus Circle's traffic, eternally congested. People hurried along sidewalks, umbrellas bobbing. Everyone absorbed in their own lives, their own problems. None of them knew that Elena Valentino had died 2 weeks ago. None of them cared that a little girl was starving herself from grief. The world just kept spinning. Marco found himself heading toward Brooklyn, crossing the bridge as dusk began to settle over the city. The rain had lessened to a steady drizzle and the streetlights were beginning to flicker on, creating halos in the mist. He didn't have a plan. He just drove through unfamiliar neighborhoods, past brownstones and corner stores, past lives completely different from his own. Part of him was looking for something. What, he didn't know. A sign? A miracle? Some magical place where his daughter would suddenly be okay again? Then he saw it. Stella's kitchen. A small, unassuming diner tucked into a corner building in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. The windows glowed with warm light, and through them Marco could see families eating together, laughing. It looked humble, genuine, the complete opposite of the high-end restaurants he usually frequented. Something about it called to him. "Sophia," he said, pulling over to park. "Are you hungry at all? Even a little bit?" She looked out the window at the diner, then back at her photograph. "I don't know. Let's just go inside for a few minutes. Get warm. You don't have to eat if you don't want to. We'll just sit for a while, okay?" After a long pause, she nodded. Marco helped her out of the car, holding her hand as they approached the diner. A small bell chimed as he opened the door, and immediately they were enveloped in warmth, both from the heating and from the atmosphere. The smell of cooking food filled the air. Garlic, tomatoes, fresh bread. For most people, it would be inviting. For Sophia, Marco saw her tense up. "Table for two?" asked an older woman with kind eyes and an apron that had seen better days. She had the warm demeanor of someone who'd been feeding people for decades. "Please," Marco said. They were led to a booth near the window. Marco slid in first, then lifted Sophia to sit beside him. She immediately curled into his side, the photograph still clutched in her hands. The older woman, her name tag read Stella, handed the menus with a sympathetic smile. She'd clearly noticed something was off, but to her credit, she didn't pry. "Can I get you folks something to drink while you look over the menu?" "Just water for both of us, thank you," Marco said. As Stella walked away, Marco glanced down at Sophia. She was staring at nothing, her eyes distant. He opened the menu, scanning it without really reading. Everything looked good. Home-style Italian cooking, the kind Elena used to make on Sunday afternoons before. He stopped that thought before it could fully form. Around them, the diner buzzed with quiet conversation. A family with 3 kids celebrating a birthday. An elderly couple sharing a meal in comfortable silence. A few solo diners reading newspapers while they ate. Normal people living normal lives. Marco hadn't felt normal in years. Maybe he never had been. Stella returned with their water, then paused, looking at Sophia with genuine concern. "Is your little one feeling all right? She looks a bit pale, if you don't mind me saying." Marco instinctively pulled Sophia closer. We've had a difficult couple of weeks. She hasn't been eating much." Stella's expression softened with immediate understanding. "I'm so sorry, honey. Difficult times have a way of stealing our appetite." She crouched down slightly to be at Sophia's eye level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Sophia looked up at her father, seeking permission. Marco nodded gently. "Sophia," she whispered. "That's a beautiful name," Stella said warmly. "You know what, Sophia? When I was a little girl and I felt sad, my grandmother always said that sometimes food can be medicine for the heart, not because it fills your belly, but because it reminds you of happy times. Would you like to see what we have that might help?" Sophia didn't respond, but she didn't pull away either. Stella stood up, patting her apron. "I'll tell you what. I'm going to have one of my best waitresses come take care of you two. She's got a gift for knowing exactly what people need. Just give me a minute." As Stella walked toward the kitchen, Marco felt something he hadn't felt in days. A tiny spark of hope. It was probably foolish. This was just a diner. These were just strangers. But something about this place, about the warmth and authenticity of it, felt different. "Papa," Sophia said quietly, "can we really taste happy times in food?" Marco looked down at his daughter, at her too thin face and sad eyes, and he wanted to promise her that yes, absolutely food could heal grief, but he'd never lied to her, and he wouldn't start now. "I think," he said carefully, "that sometimes food can remind us of people we love, and those memories can make us feel a little better. Not fixed, but better." Sophia considered this, then looked around the diner. "Mama used to take me to places like this before we moved to the big apartment when it was just us." Marco's chest tightened. He hadn't known that. There was so much about Elena's life before him that she'd never fully shared. She'd always said the past didn't matter, only their future together. Now he'd never get the chance to know all her stories. She had good taste, he managed to say. A few minutes later, a younger woman approached their table. She had warm brown eyes, auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and an easy smile that seemed genuine rather than the practiced politeness of most servers. Her name tag read, Kat. "Hi there," she said, her voice friendly but not overly cheerful. "Stella said you folks might need some extra special service tonight. I'm Catherine, but everyone calls me Kat. Mind if I sit for just a second?" Marco gestured to the seat across from them, intrigued despite himself. This was unconventional. Waitresses didn't usually sit with customers, but nothing about today was conventional. Kat slid into the booth, her attention focused primarily on Sophia. "You know," she said conversationally, "I can always tell when someone's having a really hard day. Want to know how?" Sophia glanced at her but didn't speak. "It's in the eyes," Kat continued, undeterred by the silence. "Eyes tell stories that mouths sometimes can't. And your eyes are telling me that you're carrying something really heavy for someone so young." Marco started to intervene. This might be too much, but Kat held up a gentle hand. "I lost my mom when I was 8, Kat said simply. "Not the same as your situation probably, but loss is loss. And I remember not wanting to eat for a long time after. Everything tasted like sadness, like the food knew something was missing." Sophia's eyes widened slightly. Someone understood. Kat smiled sadly. "Food did taste different after she was gone. But you know what? Eventually I found that some foods, the ones she used to make, the ones connected to happy memories, those started to taste like love again. Not the same, but good in a different way." There was a long pause. Then Sophia's small voice. "What did your mama make?" "Oh, lots of things. But her specialty was pasta. She learned from my grandmother, who learned from her mother. Recipes passed down through generations, each person adding their own little touch." Marco watched this exchange, fascinated. This young waitress had done more in 2 minutes than doctors and nannies had managed in 4 days. She'd gotten Sophia to engage. "My mama made pasta too," Sophia said quietly. "With the little beans, white beans." Kat's eyes lit up with recognition. "Pasta e fagioli?" Sophia nodded, and for the first time in weeks, the tiniest hint of something other than grief crossed her face. She made it every Sunday. Said it was her grandmother's recipe from... She frowned, trying to remember. "From the old country?" Kat suggested gently. "Yes." She said it was made with love and time, that those were the secret ingredients. Kat looked at Marco, then back at Sophia. "Your mama was right. The best food always has those ingredients. And you know what's really special? I bet a lot of mamas make that same dish, all with their own versions, all made with love." She stood up, pulling out her order pad. "I'll tell you what. I'm not saying this will taste exactly like your mama's. Nobody can make it exactly like she did. But we make a pretty good pasta e fagioli here. Would you let me bring you a small bowl? Just to try? No pressure to finish it. Just to taste, to see if maybe it reminds you of some of those Sunday afternoons." Sophia looked up at her father, uncertainty in her eyes. Marco gently brushed a curl away from her face. "It's okay, princess. Just a taste. That's all anyone is asking." After what felt like an eternity, Sophia gave the smallest nod. Kat's smile was gentle, knowing. "Okay, sweetheart, one small bowl coming right up. And for you, sir?" "I'll have the same," Marco said, surprised by his own response. When was the last time he'd eaten pasta e fagioli? Elena had made it sometimes early in their relationship, but as their lives became more complicated, simpler meals had fallen away. As Kat walked toward the kitchen, Marco felt Sophia relax slightly against him. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the evening was settling into that quiet moment between day and night when the city seemed to pause and take a breath. "Papa?" Sophia said softly. "Yes, baby? Do you think Mama would be okay with us eating someone else's cooking?" The question broke his heart and pieced it back together simultaneously. "Oh, Sophia. Mama would want you to eat. She'd want you to be healthy and strong. She loved you more than anything in the world. But what if I forget what her food tasted like?" Marco pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "You won't forget, princess. I promise you won't forget. Memories don't work like that. They stay with us, especially the important ones, especially the ones made with people we love." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the other diners, listening to the comfortable sounds of the restaurant. For the first time since Elena's death, Marco felt a tiny bit of the suffocating pressure lift from his chest. Not gone. It would never be completely gone. But lighter. When Kat returned with 2 steaming bowls of pasta e fagioli, the smell hit Marco with unexpected force. It smelled like Elena's kitchen, like Sunday afternoons, like home. He watched as Kat carefully placed a bowl in front of Sophia, along with a small spoon and a piece of crusty bread. "There you go, sweetheart. Take your time. No rush at all." Sophia stared at the bowl. Steam rose from it, carrying with it the aromas of tomato, garlic, olive oil, and something else. Something that made her eyes fill with fresh tears. "It smells like," she started, then stopped. "Like what, baby?" Marco encouraged gently. "Like Sundays," Sophia whispered. "Like when Mama would sing while she cooked." Kat, who'd been about to leave, paused. "Your mama sang while she cooked?" Sophia nodded. "Italian songs. Papa says they were from old movies." Something flickered across Kat's face. Recognition? Surprise? But it was gone before Marco could identify it. "That sounds beautiful," Kat said simply, then left them to their meal. Marco picked up his own spoon, taking a taste. The flavors were simple but perfectly balanced. Cannellini beans, small pasta, tomatoes, garlic, a hint of rosemary. Good, honest food. And yes, remarkably similar to how Elena made it. But he wasn't focused on his own meal. His entire attention was on Sophia, who was staring at her bowl as if it contained all the answers to questions she didn't know how to ask. Finally, with a trembling hand, she picked up her spoon, dipped it into the pasta, brought it slowly to her lips, and tasted it. Marco held his breath. Sophia's eyes widened. A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. But these tears were different somehow. Not the hopeless sobbing of the past weeks, but something else. Something that contained both grief and memory, loss and love, all tangled together. She took another small bite, then another. "Papa," she whispered. "It tastes like..." "It's not exactly the same, but it's close, really close." How did she know? Marco looked toward the kitchen where he could see Kat through the service window talking with Stella. How had she known? It was just coincidence, surely. Pasta e fagioli was a common Italian dish. Lots of people made it, but the way it was seasoned, the ratio of beans to pasta, the texture of the broth, it was almost identical to Elena's version. Too close to be pure chance. Sophia took another bite, and another. Small spoonfuls, but she was eating. Actually eating. Marco wanted to cry with relief, but he kept his composure, not wanting to make a big deal of it and potentially break the spell. "It's good, isn't it, princess?" She nodded, taking another careful bite. "It makes me remember the good things. Like what that lady said. It tastes like love and time." Marco found himself eating too, the simple food somehow grounding him in the moment. Around them, the diner continued its evening rhythm. Normal life. Regular people. And for just a moment, sitting in this modest Brooklyn diner with his daughter actually eating, Marco felt almost normal too. Sophia managed to eat about half the bowl before setting down her spoon. "I'm full, Papa. But it was good. Really good. You did great, baby. I'm so proud of you." When Kat returned to check on them, her smile was genuine when she saw Sophia's half-empty bowl. "How was it, sweetheart?" "It was really good," Sophia said quietly. "Thank you." "You're very welcome. Would you like to take the rest home?" Sometimes comfort food tastes even better the next day. As Kat boxed up the remaining pasta, Marco watched her carefully. There was something about her manner, her knowledge, the way she'd approached Sophia. It all felt too intentional, too informed to be random kindness. When she brought the check, Marco pulled out his wallet. "That was exceptional service," he said. "The food was perfect, exactly what we needed." Kat smiled. "I'm just glad it helped. Your daughter seems like a sweet kid going through a tough time." Marco handed her his credit card, then on impulse added, "That recipe, the pasta e fagioli, it's very specific. My wife used to make it almost exactly like that." For just a fraction of a second, something shifted in Kat's expression. "Well," she said carefully, "sometimes recipes travel in mysterious ways. They get passed down, shared between friends, adapted through generations. Good food has a way of connecting people across time and distance." She took his card and walked away, leaving Marco with more questions than answers. Sophia tugged on his sleeve. "Papa, can we come back here? Tomorrow, maybe?" Marco looked down at his daughter, his precious, fragile daughter who'd just eaten her first real meal in 4 days, and nodded. "Yes, princess. We can come back." As they prepared to leave, Marco's eyes followed Kat as she moved through the diner with practiced efficiency. There was a story here, a connection he didn't understand yet, and he was going to find out what it was. Because in his world, coincidences rarely existed. Everything happened for a reason, and reasons could be uncovered. But for tonight, the only thing that mattered was that Sophia had eaten. She'd taken the first small step back toward healing. The rain had stopped completely by the time they walked back to the car. The Brooklyn streets glistened under the streetlights, washed clean. Marco held Sophia's hand, and for the first time in 2 weeks her grip felt a little stronger. "Papa," she said as he buckled her into her car seat. "Yes, baby? Do you think Mama sent us to that restaurant? Like, maybe she knew we needed help?" Marco paused, looking into his daughter's hopeful eyes. He didn't believe in signs from beyond, in cosmic guidance or divine intervention. His world was concrete, transactional, built on power and control. But maybe, just maybe, some things couldn't be explained by logic alone. "Maybe she did, Princess," he said softly. "Maybe she did." As they drove back toward Manhattan, Sophia fell asleep in the back seat, still clutching her mother's photograph but with the tiniest hint of peace on her face. Marco glanced at her in the rearview mirror, then at the business card he'd discreetly pocketed from the diner. Tomorrow, he'd have his people look into this place, into Kat, into why a random waitress in a Brooklyn diner knew how to make pasta exactly the way his dead wife had made it. But tonight, he just drove, grateful that his daughter had finally eaten, and wondering if perhaps, in the vast randomness of the universe, there might actually be such a thing as small miracles after all. The morning sun streamed through Sophia's bedroom window, illuminating dust particles that danced in the golden light. Marco stood in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, watching his daughter sleep. For the first time in 2 weeks, her face looked peaceful rather than anguished. The photograph of Elena lay on the nightstand instead of clutched in her hands, a small but significant change. Last night, after they'd returned from Brooklyn, Sophia had actually asked for a glass of milk before bed. She'd drunk half of it, not much, but infinitely more than the nothing she'd consumed for 4 days straight. "Mrs." Chen had nearly cried with relief. Marco had barely slept, his mind racing with questions. The pasta e fagioli, the way Kat had approached Sophia with such intuitive understanding, the familiarity of the recipe. It gnawed at him, this sense that there was something beneath the surface he couldn't see. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Vincent, his head of security and oldest friend. "Boss, the weekly meeting is at 10. Russo's people want to discuss the shipping contract. Can't reschedule again." Marco typed back quickly. "Push it to 2 p.m. I have something to handle this morning." "Everything okay?" "Yes, just something personal." He pocketed the phone as Sophia began to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a brief, heartbreaking moment, Marco saw confusion cross her face. That terrible instant when she woke up and forgot that her mother was gone, followed by the crushing memory returning. "Morning, Princess," he said softly, entering the room and sitting on the edge of her bed. "Morning, Papa." Her voice was small but clearer than it had been in days. "How do you feel?" Sophia sat up, considering the question seriously. "My tummy doesn't hurt as much. It was hurting before from being empty." Marco nodded, relief washing through him. "That's good, baby. That's really good. Are you hungry this morning?" She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "A little bit, but..." She looked down at her hands. "But what? What if the food here doesn't taste right again? What if last night was just special because we were somewhere different?" Marco understood. She was afraid that the breakthrough was temporary, that they'd return to the suffocating grief that made everything taste like ashes. "How about this?" he suggested. "What if we go back to that restaurant? Stella's Kitchen. Would you like that?" Sophia's eyes widened. "Really? Can we go back there?" "Absolutely. We can have breakfast there or lunch, whatever you want." For the first time since Elena's funeral, Marco saw something that resembled excitement flicker across his daughter's face. It was faint, fragile as spun glass, but it was there. "Can we go now?" Sophia asked. Marco glanced at his watch, 7:23 a.m. "The restaurant might not be open yet, Princess, but we can get ready, have some juice, and head over there for a late breakfast." "How does that sound?" "Okay," Sophia agreed, already climbing out of bed with more energy than she'd shown in weeks. Mrs. Chen nearly dropped her tea when she saw Sophia emerge from her bedroom, dressed and ready to go out. "Mr. Valentino?" she asked, clearly confused. We're going out for breakfast, Marco explained. Sophia ate last night. At a restaurant in Brooklyn. She wants to go back. Mrs. Chen's hand went to her heart. She ate? Oh, thank God. Thank God. Don't get too excited yet, Marco cautioned, though he felt the same surge of hope. It's just the beginning, but it's something. An hour later, Marco and Sophia were in the SUV heading back toward Brooklyn. The morning traffic was heavy, giving Marco time to observe the city waking up. Delivery trucks, commuters rushing to subway stations, street vendors setting up their carts. All the rhythms of normal life that had seemed so distant lately. Sophia sat in her car seat, looking out the window with more interest than she'd shown in anything recently. She'd even let Mrs. Chen brush her hair properly, though she'd refused the elaborate curls Elena used to style. Just a simple ponytail. Small steps. Papa, she said as they crossed the bridge, what if the nice waitress lady isn't working today? Then someone else will help us, Marco assured her. But something tells me she might be there. He didn't mention that he'd called the restaurant at 8 a.m., confirming their hours and casually asking about their staff schedule. Kat Morrison worked Tuesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Today was Wednesday. When they pulled up to Stella's kitchen just after 10 o'clock, the morning crowd was thinning out. Through the window, Marco could see a few tables occupied. Mostly elderly folks enjoying late breakfasts, a couple of people working on laptops. And there, refilling someone's coffee, was Kat. She's here, Sophia said, genuine happiness in her voice. They entered, the same bell chiming their arrival. This time, it was Kat who looked up first, and Marco saw surprise register on her face, followed by something that looked like recognition, as if she'd been expecting them. Well, good morning, Kat said, approaching with that same warm, genuine smile. I didn't think I'd see you folks again so soon. Welcome back. Hi, Sophia said shyly. We came back for breakfast. I'm so glad you did. How are you feeling today, sweetheart? Better, Sophia admitted. The pasta last night was really good. Kat's smile softened. I'm happy to hear that. Come on, let me get you a good table. She led them to the same booth by the window. Had she saved it deliberately, or was it just chance? Marco was beginning to believe less and less in coincidence where this woman was concerned. So, Kat said, pulling out her order pad. Breakfast. We've got some really good options. Our pancakes are pretty famous around here. We also make a mean omelet, French toast, and... She looked directly at Sophia. We have oatmeal with cinnamon and honey that my grandmother always said was the best way to start a day when you need extra warmth. Sophia considered this seriously. What kind of pancakes? Buttermilk. Fluffy as clouds. We can add blueberries, chocolate chips, or keep them plain with maple syrup. Can I have plain ones with just a little bit of syrup? Marco felt his chest tighten with emotion. She was ordering food, making choices, engaging with life again in small but meaningful ways. You absolutely can, Kat confirmed, writing it down. And for you, sir? The same, Marco said. And coffee, please. Black. Coming right up. Kat paused, then added, It's really good to see you both again. Especially you, Sophia. You look brighter today. After Kat walked away, Sophia turned to her father. Papa, why is she so nice to us? She doesn't even know us. Some people are just naturally kind, Marco said, though he was wondering the same thing. In his experience, everyone wanted something. Kindness usually came with a price tag, even if it wasn't immediately apparent. But watching Kat move through the diner, greeting regulars by name, laughing at an elderly man's joke, patiently explaining menu items to a confused tourist, she seemed genuinely, authentically kind. No pretense, no angle. It made him more suspicious, not less. When their pancakes arrived, they were indeed fluffy, golden and perfectly made. Sophia took a tentative bite, then another, and Marco watched as she ate slowly, but steadily. Not the entire stack, that would be too much, but a respectable amount for a child who'd barely eaten in days. These are good, Sophia announced. Different from Mama's, but good. Your mama made pancakes? Kat asked, appearing to refill Marco's coffee. Sophia nodded. Every Saturday morning, she put vanilla in them, and sometimes she made faces with the blueberries. Kat's expression was gentle, understanding. She sounds like she was a wonderful mama. She was the best, Sophia said, and though her eyes got a little watery, she didn't break down. Progress. Kat crouched down beside the booth, at Sophia's eye level. Can I tell you something? My mama used to say that the people we love never really leave us. They live on in the things they taught us, the recipes they shared, the love they showed us. Every time you remember your mama's pancakes or her smile or the way she made you feel safe, that's her still being with you. Sophia looked at Kat with something like wonder. That's kind of what Papa said too. Well, your papa sounds like a smart man. Marco and Kat's eyes met over Sophia's head, and there was a moment of connection. Two adults trying to help a child navigate impossible grief. But there was something else in Kat's expression too. Knowledge, recognition, something she wasn't saying. Kat, Marco said carefully. Last night, the pasta fagioli. It was remarkably similar to how my wife made it. Almost identical, actually. Kat stood up, her expression neutral but her body language suddenly guarded. Like I said, recipes travel. It's a pretty common Italian dish. Not that common, Marco pressed gently. The specific ratio of beans to pasta, the way it's seasoned, even the type of pasta, ditalini, not the larger shells some people use. My wife was very particular about her recipe. She said it came from her grandmother, from a small village in Abruzzo. Something flickered in Kat's eyes. Abruzzo, she repeated quietly. You know it? My grandmother mentioned it once. Said she had a friend from there, years ago. Kat shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Look, I should probably get back to work. Other tables need... Please, Marco said, his voice low but intense. If you know something, anything about how you know that recipe, I need to hear it, for Sophia's sake. Kat looked at Sophia, who was watching the exchange with confused interest, then back at Marco. This isn't really the place for this conversation. Then tell me when and where, Marco said. I'll be there. Kat hesitated, clearly wrestling with something internal. Finally, she said, my shift ends at 6. There's a small park 2 blocks from here. Prospect Gardens. Meet me there at 6:30. Alone, she added, glancing meaningfully at Sophia. This conversation might not be appropriate for little ears. Marco nodded. I'll be there. Kat walked away and Marco noticed her hands were shaking slightly as she refilled water glasses at another table. Whatever she knew, it was significant, and it had shaken her. Papa, why does it matter how she knows the recipe? Sophia asked, returning to her pancakes. I'm just curious, Princess. Your mama's cooking was special. I want to understand where this recipe came from. It wasn't the whole truth, but it would do for now. They finished breakfast. Sophia ate more than half her pancakes, which felt like a victory, and Marco paid the bill, leaving a generous tip. As they prepared to leave, Stella herself emerged from the kitchen. You folks come back and see us, she said warmly. It does my heart good to see young ones enjoying good food. We will, Sophia promised. The pancakes were really good. Outside, the November air was crisp and clear, the earlier rain leaving everything smelling fresh. Marco checked his watch, 11:45. He had that meeting at 2, which gave him enough time to get back to Manhattan, deal with business, then return for his 6:30 appointment with Kat. Papa, can we come back tomorrow too? Sophia asked as he buckled her into her car seat. Let's see how you feel tomorrow, Marco said. But if you want to come back, we will. I like it there. It feels safe, like Mama's kitchen used to feel. Marco kissed her forehead. Then we'll come back, Princess, as often as you need. The drive back to Manhattan was quiet, Sophia dozing in the back seat. Marco's mind was racing, though. Kat's reaction to Abruzzo, her knowledge of the recipe, her insistence on meeting privately. Something was here, some connection to Elena's past that he'd never known about. Elena had always been private about her life before they met. She'd told him the basics, born in Italy, moved to the States as a teenager, parents deceased, no siblings. But the details had always been vague, and when he'd pressed, she'd said the past didn't matter, only their future together. He'd respected that. In his world, everyone had things they didn't talk about. He certainly did. But now, with Elena gone, and a stranger knowing intimate details about her cooking, Marco realized how much he didn't know about the woman he'd loved. And it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Back at the penthouse, Mrs. Chen was overjoyed to hear that Sophia had eaten a full breakfast. This is wonderful news, Mr. Valentino. Truly wonderful. She's not fixed, Marco cautioned. Grief doesn't work that way. But she's starting to heal. That's something. His 2 o'clock meeting was tense but productive. The Russo family wanted to renegotiate terms on a shipping contract. Legitimate business, completely above board, but requiring careful navigation of egos and interests. Marco handled it with his usual efficiency, his mind only partly on the negotiation. By 6:15 he was back in Brooklyn, parking near Prospect Gardens. It was a small neighborhood park, mostly empty at this hour on a Wednesday evening. A few dog walkers, some teenagers on the basketball court, an elderly woman feeding pigeons, and Kat sitting on a bench near a fountain wearing jeans and a simple sweater looking nervous. Marco approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Thank you for meeting me." Kat looked up, her expression guarded. "I almost didn't come. This is complicated. Most meaningful things are," Marco said, sitting on the bench but keeping a respectful distance between them. "Tell me what you know." Kat was quiet for a long moment, watching the fountain. Finally she spoke. "My grandmother, Anna Morrison, is 87 years old. She lives in a nursing home about 20 minutes from here. Memory care unit. Dementia." She paused, pain crossing her face. "Most days she doesn't know who I am." "I'm sorry," Marco said and meant it. About 15 years ago, before the dementia, she had a friend, a younger woman, maybe late 20s, with a little girl, maybe 2 years old. The woman she was running from someone. My grandmother never told me the full story, but I gathered it was bad. An abusive relationship, maybe worse. Marco felt his stomach tighten. Elena had never mentioned anything like this. The woman and her daughter lived in the apartment next to my grandmother's for about a year. Kat continued. "My grandmother said she was scared all the time, jumping at shadows, always looking over her shoulder. But she was also kind, gentle, good with her little girl, and she loved to cook." "Elena?" Marco said quietly. Kat nodded. "I never knew her last name. My grandmother just called her Elena. But when you mentioned Abruzzo last night, my grandmother told me Elena was from there, from a small village in the mountains. And the pasta e fagioli, that was Elena's recipe. She taught it to my grandmother, and my grandmother taught it to me." Marco's mind was reeling. Elena had been in New York before they met, with a daughter, running from someone. "Wait," he said, the pieces clicking together. "You said Elena had a little girl, 2 years old, about 15 years ago." "Yes. Sophia is only 6 years old. She was born after Elena and I were together." Kat looked at him with something like pity. "Mr. Valentino, I don't know what Elena told you about her past, but the woman my grandmother knew had a daughter. I saw pictures. My grandmother kept a few. And that little girl looked just like your Sophia." The world tilted. Marco gripped the edge of the bench. "That's impossible. Elena and I met 7 years ago. We were together for 6 months before she got pregnant with Sophia." "Are you sure?" Kat asked gently. "Are you absolutely certain about the timeline?" Marco tried to think back. He'd met Elena at a charity gala. She'd been working as a caterer. Beautiful, mysterious, different from the women in his world. They'd connected immediately, started dating, fell in love fast, hard. She'd gotten pregnant, they'd gotten married quietly at City Hall, and then Sophia was born. But now that he thought about it, Elena had been vague about her past. She'd had no family at the wedding, no old friends. She'd claimed to be alone in the world, and he'd never questioned it because in his business you respected people's privacy. Had there been another child? Before Sophia? "Where is this daughter now?" Marco asked, his voice rough. "The one from 15 years ago?" Kat shook her head. "I don't know. My grandmother said one day Elena and the little girl just disappeared, left in the middle of the night. My grandmother always wondered what happened to them, whether they were safe. She talked about Elena often, especially the past few years when her memory started going. On good days, she still mentions her friend Elena who made the best pasta." Marco stood up, pacing, trying to process this information. "Why didn't you say something last night when you saw Sophia?" "Because I wasn't sure," Kat admitted. "It's been 15 years. People change, and Elena is a common enough name. But when Sophia mentioned her mother's pasta, and then you described the recipe exactly how my grandmother makes it, I knew it had to be the same person. And the fact that my wife died 2 weeks ago," Marco said bitterly. "Did your grandmother mention that she'd reconnected with Elena? That she somehow knew what happened?" "No," Kat said firmly. "My grandmother hasn't been lucid enough for real conversations in over a year. She doesn't watch the news, doesn't really understand the outside world anymore. This is pure coincidence, you walking into our diner, Sophia recognizing the food. I didn't plan this." Marco wanted to believe her. Everything in his training told him to be suspicious, to assume angles and ulterior motives. But looking at Kat's open, honest face, he found himself believing her anyway. "I need to see your grandmother," he said. "I need to ask her about Elena." Kat bit her lip. It's not a good idea. She has maybe 1 or 2 clear moments a week, if that. The rest of the time she's confused. living in the past, or doesn't recognize anyone. I don't care. Please. There's so much I didn't know about Elena, and now, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. My daughter just lost her mother. If there's another child out there, if Elena had a whole life I never knew about, I need to understand. For Sophia's sake. Kat studied him for a long moment. You really loved her, didn't you? Elena. More than anything, Marco said quietly. She was my world, her and Sophia, and now I'm finding out I might not have known her at all. Knowing someone and knowing their past aren't the same thing, Kat said gently. People reinvent themselves all the time, especially people running from trauma. Maybe Elena needed to become someone new to survive. Maybe, Marco conceded, but I still need to know. Can you take me to see your grandmother? Kat hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but not tonight. Visiting hours are over. Tomorrow afternoon? I can take you during my break. I'll be there. Just tell me when and where. Kat pulled out her phone, typing out the address of the nursing home. 2 p.m. tomorrow, Shady Oaks Care Facility. Ask for Anna Morrison. Thank you, Marco said. And Kat, why are you helping me? You don't know me. For all you know, I could be the kind of person Elena was running from. Kat smiled sadly. If you were, Sophia wouldn't look at you the way she does. Kids know. They always know. And that little girl loves you completely. Whatever Elena's past was, she trusted you with her daughter. That tells me everything I need to know. Marco felt unexpected emotion well up in his chest. She ate again today. At breakfast. Pancakes. Not all of them, but more than half. That's wonderful, Kat said, genuine warmth in her voice. Food is healing. Not just physically. Emotionally, too. Every meal she eats is a step forward. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the last light fade from the sky. Then Kat stood. I should get home. Long day tomorrow. Kat, Marco said as she started to walk away. The recipe, the pasta e fagioli. Would you teach Sophia how to make it? Sometime? When she's ready? Kat turned back, surprise on her face. You'd want that? Elena would want that, Marco said. She loved passing down traditions, and if this recipe connects Sophia to her mother, to her grandmother, to this whole history she doesn't know yet, yes, I'd want that. Then yes, Kat agreed. When the time is right, I'll teach her. I promise. As Marco drove back to Manhattan, his mind wouldn't stop spinning. Another daughter. Elena running from someone. A whole life he'd never known about. What else had she hidden? And more importantly, why? He thought about confronting this mystery, using his resources to dig into Elena's past, to uncover every secret. He had the means. People who could find anything, anyone. But something stopped him. Some instinct that said this needed to be approached carefully, gently, for Sophia's sake. When he arrived home, Sophia was already in her pajamas, looking more like her old self than she had in weeks. Papa, you're home. Mrs. Chen made chicken soup and I ate almost a whole bowl. Marco picked her up, hugging her tight. That's my girl. I'm so proud of you. Can we go back to Stella's kitchen tomorrow? Maybe not tomorrow, Marco said carefully, but soon, I promise. As he tucked her into bed that night, Sophia looked up at him with Elena's eyes, those same warm brown eyes that had captivated him 7 years ago. Papa, do you think Mama is happy that I'm eating again? I know she is, Princess. Wherever she is, she's smiling. Because you're being brave and strong, and that's exactly what she'd want. Sophia nodded, satisfied with this answer. I love you, Papa. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. After she fell asleep, Marco stood in his home office looking at the photograph of Elena on his desk. Young, beautiful, smiling at the camera with Sophia as a baby in her arms. He'd taken this picture in Central Park on a perfect spring day. Who were you? He whispered to the photograph. What were you running from? And what else didn't you tell me? The photograph, of course, offered no answers. Only Elena's frozen smile, keeping her secrets even in death. Tomorrow he'd visit Anna Morrison. Tomorrow he might get some answers. But tonight he was simply grateful that his daughter had eaten 2 full meals, that she'd smiled, that she was starting, slowly, painfully, to heal. Sometimes that had to be enough. He looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, glittering with a million lights, each one representing a life, a story, secrets kept and truths hidden. In a city of 8 million people, what were the chances that he'd walk into the one diner where someone knew Elena's past? Coincidence? Fate? Or something else entirely? Marco didn't believe in fate. He believed in patterns, in cause and effect, in the logical progression of events. But he was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, some things couldn't be explained by logic alone. And tomorrow he'd take another step toward understanding the woman he'd loved, the secrets she'd kept, and the past that had finally caught up to them in the most unexpected way. Through a bowl of pasta e fagioli served by a kind waitress in a Brooklyn diner, life, Marco was learning, had a strange way of revealing truths when you least expected them. And sometimes, the smallest connections led to the biggest revelations. The Shady Oaks Care Facility sat on a quiet street in Brooklyn, a modest 3-story building with flower boxes in the windows. Marco arrived at exactly 2 p.m., finding Kat already waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her beat-up Honda Civic. "Thanks for coming," she said, pushing off from the car. "I should warn you, Anna has good days and bad days. Today might not give you the answers you're looking for." "I understand," Marco replied, though patience had never been his strength. Inside, the facility smelled of antiseptic and cafeteria food, but it was clean and the staff seemed attentive. Kat signed them in, chatting familiarly with the receptionist. "We're here to see my grandmother, Anna Morrison. Room 247, the receptionist said warmly. She had a good morning, ate all her breakfast and even did some coloring. They took the elevator to the second floor, walking down hallways decorated with residents' artwork. Kat stopped outside a door marked 247, her hand on the handle. "Just be gentle with her, okay? She gets confused easily." Marco nodded, and Kat opened the door. The room was small but personalized. Photos on the walls, a handmade quilt on the bed, a vase of fresh flowers on the windowsill. And sitting in an armchair by the window was Anna Morrison. She was tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with snow-white hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was deeply lined, but her eyes, when they focused, were sharp and bright blue. "Nonna," Kat said gently, kneeling beside the chair. "It's Catherine. I brought someone to visit you." Anna's eyes moved to Marco, studying him with surprising intensity. "You're not the doctor." "No, ma'am, my name is Marco Valentino." Something flickered across Anna's face at the name. Recognition or confusion? Marco couldn't tell. "Valentino," Anna repeated slowly. "Italian name. Are you from the old country?" "My grandparents were," Marco said, pulling up a chair. "From Sicily." "Ah, Sicily. Beautiful. I had a friend once. From the mountains. Abruzzo." Anna's eyes grew distant. Such a sweet girl. Always scared, though. Always looking over her shoulder. Kat squeezed her grandmother's hand. "Nonna, do you remember your friend Elena? The one who lived next door?" "Elena," Anna said, and her face softened. "Of course I remember Elena. She made the most beautiful pasta. Taught me her grandmother's recipe. Said food was the only good thing she'd brought from the old life." Marco leaned forward. "Mrs. Morrison, Elena was my wife. She passed away 2 weeks ago." Anna's expression crumpled. "Oh no. Oh, that poor girl. She finally found peace and now..." Tears rolled down her weathered cheeks. "That beautiful child of hers. Is she safe? Did he find them?" "Who?" Marco asked urgently. Who was she running from? But Anna's focus had shifted, her eyes going vague. "The baby cried at night. Little Isabella. Such a sweet baby. I used to watch her sometimes when Elena had to work. 3 jobs that poor girl had. Trying to save money to disappear properly." Marco felt his heart stop. "Isabella?" Kat's grip tightened on her grandmother's hand. "Nonna, what happened to Isabella? Where did they go?" Anna shook her head, confused now. "They left. Middle of the night. Elena came to say goodbye. She was crying. Said she'd found a way out. A way to give Isabella a better life. Said she had to let her go to keep her safe." Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. "She gave that baby to someone who could protect her. Broke her heart, but she did it anyway." Marco stood abruptly, pacing the small room. Elena had had another daughter, had given her up, all before she'd met him. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Do you know who Elena gave Isabella to? Where the child went?" Anna looked at him, her eyes clearing momentarily. "You're him, aren't you? The one she found later, the one who gave her Sophia." "Yes, we had a daughter together. Sophia. She's 6 years old. She never forgot Isabella," Anna said quietly. "Even after she found happiness with you. Started over. She told me once, this was years later, she came to visit. She said every day she wondered if giving up Isabella was the right choice, but she'd been so young, so scared. The father was dangerous. She had to protect her baby the only way she knew how. Did she ever say who adopted Isabella? Kat asked gently. Anna's face scrunched up, trying to remember. A family. Good people. Through the church, I think. Closed adoption. Elena never knew where Isabella went. That was the deal. Complete separation. Clean break. So he could never find them. Marco felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. Elena had carried this secret their entire relationship. A daughter she'd given up. A whole life she'd never mentioned. How old was Isabella when Elena gave her up? Marco asked. 2, maybe 3. Just a baby still. Anna's eyes filled with tears again. It destroyed Elena. But she thought it was the only way. And maybe it was. Maybe that monster would have found them otherwise. Who was he? Marco pressed. The father? Did Elena ever tell you his name? But Anna was fading again, her attention drifting to the window. The birds are lovely today. Do you see them? The little sparrows? Kat looked at Marco apologetically. She's gone. Once she starts talking about the birds, she won't come back for a while. They stayed a few more minutes, Kat chatting softly with her grandmother about neutral topics while Marco processed everything he'd learned. When they finally left, Anna had dozed off in her chair, a small smile on her face. In the hallway, Marco leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. She gave up a child. My Elena gave up a daughter and never told me. She was protecting Isabella, Kat said gently, and probably protecting you too. If the father was as dangerous as my grandmother suggests, I could have helped, Marco said, frustration evident. I could have protected them both. Could you have? 7 years ago? Kat challenged softly. You said you met Elena at a charity event. You were what, 25? Starting out? Did you have the resources then that you have now? Marco was quiet. 7 years ago, he'd been building his empire, making connections, establishing himself. He'd had ambition and potential, but not yet the real power he wielded now. Maybe she was waiting, Kat continued. Waiting until she knew you were strong enough, established enough. Maybe she was planning to tell you about Isabella when the time was right. And then she died, Marco finished bitterly. And now I have a daughter out there somewhere who doesn't know her mother is gone, who doesn't know she has a sister. They walked to the parking lot in silence. At their cars, Kat turned to him. What are you going to do? I don't know, Marco admitted. Find her, I suppose. I have resources. I can track down adoption records, find out where Isabella went. And then what? Disrupt her entire life? Tell her the mother she never knew just died? Marco ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, Kat. I just know I need to understand. And Sophia, she deserves to know she has a sister. Kat was quiet for a moment. Be careful, Marco. Secrets exist for reasons. Sometimes uncovering them causes more harm than leaving them buried. And sometimes, Marco countered, the truth is the only thing that can heal us. They parted ways, Kat heading back to work, Marco sitting in his car, trying to decide his next move. He pulled out his phone, staring at Vincent's contact. One call, and he'd have people searching every adoption record in New York. They'd find Isabella within days, maybe hours. But something stopped him. Kat's words echoed. Be careful. Secrets exist for reasons. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Sophia asking when you'll be home. She wants to show you a drawing she made. A drawing. His 6-year-old daughter was drawing again. Creating. Living. Marco started the car, heading back to Manhattan. The search for Isabella could wait. Right now, Sophia needed him present, not distracted by ghosts of Elena's past. When he arrived home, Sophia ran to him, clutching a piece of paper. Papa, look what I made. The drawing showed 3 figures. A tall man, a small girl, and a woman with angel wings watching over them from a cloud. Crude, childish, but beautiful in its honesty. That's us, Sophia explained. You, me, and Mama, watching from heaven. Marco pulled her into a hug, his eyes burning. It's perfect, princess. Absolutely perfect. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Marco stood in his office looking at the drawing she'd given him. 3 figures, a family, but somewhere out there was a 4th, Isabella, his stepdaughter, Sophia's half-sister, and he would find her. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but he would find her. Because family, even fragmented, complicated, painful family, mattered. Elena had taught him that, even if she'd never meant to. 3 months later, the first snowfall of December dusted Central Park in white, transforming the familiar landscape into something magical. Marco stood at the penthouse window, coffee in hand, watching the early morning joggers leave footprints in the fresh powder. Behind him, he heard the sounds of Sophia getting ready for school, her voice chattering with Mrs. Chen about the snow, about her upcoming class holiday party, about the book report she was excited to present. Normal sounds. Beautiful, ordinary sounds. 3 months ago, this scene would have been unimaginable. 3 months ago, Sophia hadn't been eating, speaking, or engaging with life. 3 months ago, Marco had been drowning in grief and helplessness, watching his daughter fade away. Everything had changed the night they'd walked into Stella's kitchen. "Papa," Sophia called, running into the living room in her school uniform, backpack bouncing. "Can we go to the diner after school today? Kat said she'd teach me how to make the breadsticks." Marco smiled, setting down his coffee. "We can do that, Princess, but first, school. Ready to go?" "Ready." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the elevator. "Come on, we can't be late. It's library day." In the car, Sophia chattered about her friends, her teacher, the science project she was working on. Marco listened, marveling at the transformation. The pale, silent child had become vibrant again, not the same as before Elena's death, but different, older somehow, stronger. Grief had changed her, but it hadn't destroyed her. After dropping Sophia at her private school on the Upper East Side, Marco headed to his office. Vincent was waiting with reports, contracts needing signatures, decisions requiring his attention. The business world had continued spinning, even through his personal crisis. "Boss," Vincent said, sliding a folder across the desk, "the adoption record search you requested. We found her." Marco's hand froze over the folder. 3 months ago, he'd asked Vincent to locate Isabella discreetly. 3 months of careful investigation, following paper trails, navigating sealed records through legitimate channels. "Where is she?" Marco asked quietly. "Upstate New York. Small town called Beacon. She was adopted by David and Martha Chen. No relation to your Mrs. Chen. Good people. Teacher and a librarian. They renamed her Emma. Emma Chen. She's 17 now, senior in high school. Honor student. Plays violin. Wants to study medicine." Marco opened the folder, seeing photographs of a teenage girl with Elena's eyes and smile. His heart clenched. "Does she know she's adopted?" "Yes. Open adoption in terms of her knowing, but she's never sought out information about her birth parents. According to what we could gather, she's had a good life. Happy. Stable." Marco stared at the photos. Emma, Isabella, Elena's first daughter, living a completely separate life, unaware that her birth mother had died, unaware she had a half-sister. "What do you want to do?" Vincent asked. Marco was quiet for a long moment, then he closed the folder. "Nothing. Not yet. She's 17. Applying to colleges. Building her future. Disrupting that now would be selfish." "You're sure?" "No," Marco admitted. "But I'm thinking about what Elena would want. She gave Isabella up to protect her, to give her a better life. That life seems good. Who am I to destroy that with painful truths? And Sophia? She has a right to know about her sister. When she's older," Marco decided. "When she's healed more. When she can process it without it damaging her recovery. For now, we keep this information safe. When the time is right, maybe when Emma is in college, more independent, we'll reach out. Gently. Give her the choice to connect or not." Vincent nodded, understanding. "You've changed, boss. 3 months ago, you would have demanded immediate action." Marco smiled slightly. 3 months ago, I thought I could control everything. I've learned some things need time, patience, the right moment. That afternoon, Marco picked up Sophia from school and drove to Brooklyn. The route had become familiar. They made this trip 3 or 4 times a week now. Stella's kitchen had become their sanctuary, a place where Sophia felt close to her mother's memory without being overwhelmed by it. Kat was waiting for them, apron on, smile genuine. Over the past 3 months, she'd become more than just a waitress serving them meals. She'd become a friend, a bridge to Elena's past, someone who understood grief and healing. "Ready for your breadstick lesson?" Kat asked Sophia. "So ready." Sophia bounced with excitement. In the kitchen, Stella had cleared a workspace. Kat tied an apron around Sophia's waist, comically large on her small frame, and set out ingredients. "The secret to good breadsticks," Kat explained, "is patience. You can't rush the dough. You have to let it rise in its own time." Marco watched from the doorway as Kat guided Sophia's hands through kneading the dough, explaining each step with patience and warmth. Sophia was completely engaged, asking questions, laughing when flour dusted her nose. "She's good with her," Stella said, appearing beside Marco. "Your little one has come so far. Thanks to all of you. Marco said. This place, Kat, the food. It saved her. Food is love made visible, Stella said simply. And that child needed to feel loved and safe again. We just provided the space for that. Later, while the dough was rising, Kat joined Marco at their usual booth. They'd fallen into an easy friendship over the past months. Conversations about Sophia, about life, about healing. Kat had shared stories about her grandmother's better days, about her own dreams of maybe opening a small cooking school someday. Marco had opened up about the challenges of single fatherhood, of running a business while being present for his daughter. I visited Anna again yesterday, Kat said. She had a clear moment. Asked about that nice Italian man who'd come to see her. I think she meant you. How is she? Fading, Kat admitted sadly. But peaceful. She talks about Elena sometimes. Happy memories mostly. She's glad to know Elena found love again before she died, that Sophia exists. Marco was quiet for a moment. I found Isabella, Elena's first daughter. Kat's eyes widened. You did? Where is she? Upstate. She's 17, happy, doing well. I'm not going to contact her, not yet. That must have been a hard decision. The right decisions usually are, Marco said. Elena gave her up to protect her. I have to respect that even now. Kat reached across the table, squeezing his hand briefly. You're a good man, Marco Valentino. Elena chose well. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not romance. Neither was ready for that. Might never be ready. But connection. Understanding. The possibility of something more someday if they both healed enough. Breadsticks are ready, Sophia called from the kitchen, breaking the moment. They spent the next hour eating warm breadsticks with marinara sauce, Sophia proudly explaining every step of the process. Other diners smiled at her enthusiasm. This place had become their extended family. Stella, Kat, even the regular customers who'd watched Sophia's transformation over the months. As evening fell and they prepared to leave, Sophia hugged Kat tightly. Thank you for teaching me. I'm going to make these for Papa every Sunday, like Mama used to make her special pasta. I think that's a beautiful tradition, Kat said, returning the hug. Your Mama would be so proud of you, Sophia. You're brave and strong and full of love. In the car heading home, Sophia was quiet, reflective. Papa? Yes, Princess? I still miss Mama every day, but it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. Is that okay? Marco's throat tightened. That's more than okay, baby. That's healing. Mama wouldn't want you to hurt forever. She'd want you to remember her with love, but also to keep living, keep growing, keep being happy. Kat says people we love become part of us, so Mama's still here in my heart in the things she taught me. Kat's very wise. Do you think, Sophia hesitated, do you think maybe someday Kat could be like, not Mama, nobody could be Mama, but like, family? Marco glanced at his daughter in the rear-view mirror. Would you like that? I think so. She makes me feel safe, like Mama used to. Different, but good. Then we'll see what happens, Marco said carefully. These things take time, but Kat is definitely our friend, and friends can become family in their own way. Sophia seemed satisfied with this answer, returning to looking out the window at the city lights. That night, after tucking Sophia into bed, Marco stood in his office with the folder Vincent had given him. He looked at Emma's photographs one more time. This girl who shared Sophia's blood, who had Elena's smile. Someday, he'd tell Sophia about her sister. Someday they'd reach out to Emma, give her the choice to know her history or not. But not today. Today was about consolidating the healing they'd already achieved. He filed the folder away in his safe, then pulled out his phone. He typed a message to Kat. Thank you, for everything. You've given Sophia something I couldn't. A connection to her mother that feels warm instead of painful. I'm grateful. The response came a few minutes later. She's given me something too. Purpose. Joy. A reminder that helping others heal can heal yourself. Thank you for trusting me with her story. Marco smiled, pocketing his phone. Outside, snow continued to fall on Manhattan, covering the city in quiet white. Somewhere upstate, a 17-year-old girl was probably doing homework, unaware of the family she didn't know she had. Somewhere in a nursing home, an elderly woman was sleeping, dreaming perhaps of her friend Elena and Sunday pasta. And here, in this penthouse, a little girl was sleeping peacefully, her grief transforming slowly into memory, her pain becoming strength. The journey wasn't over. Grief didn't have an end point, just evolving stages. But they were moving forward, together. 3 months ago, Marco had thought his world was ending. Now he understood it was just changing. Painful, difficult change, but also necessary. Growth forged in loss. Elena would always be part of their story. Her recipes, her love, her memory woven into Sophia's healing. But they were also writing new chapters. With Kat, with Stella's kitchen, with this chosen family they'd found in the most unexpected place. And maybe that was the real lesson. That love didn't end with death. It transformed, continued, found new expressions. Elena's love lived on in Sophia's laughter, in shared recipes, in the kindness of strangers who became friends, in a bowl of pasta e fagioli that tasted like home, in breadsticks made with small hands and patient guidance, in the slow, steady process of learning to live again after loss. Marco turned off the lights in his office, checking on Sophia one more time before heading to his own room. She was curled up with the photograph of Elena, but her face was peaceful now, not anguished. Healing. They were both healing. And tomorrow, they'd wake up and take another small step forward. Together. Because that's what family did. Even when, especially when, that family was found in the most unexpected places. 3 months later, the first snowfall of December dusted Central Park in white, transforming the familiar landscape into something magical. Marco stood at the penthouse window, coffee in hand, watching the early morning joggers leave footprints in the fresh powder. Behind him, he heard the sounds of Sophia getting ready for school, her voice chattering with Mrs. Chen about the snow, about her upcoming class holiday party, about the book report she was excited to present. Normal sounds. Beautiful, ordinary sounds. 3 months ago, this scene would have been unimaginable. 3 months ago, Sophia hadn't been eating, speaking, or engaging with life. 3 months ago, Marco had been drowning in grief and helplessness, watching his daughter fade away. Everything had changed the night they'd walked into Stella's kitchen. "Papa," Sophia called, running into the living room in her school uniform, backpack bouncing. "Can we go to the diner after school today? Kat said she'd teach me how to make the breadsticks." Marco smiled, setting down his coffee. "We can do that, Princess, but first, school. Ready to go?" "Ready." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the elevator. "Come on, we can't be late. It's library day." In the car, Sophia chattered about her friends, her teacher, the science project she was working on. Marco listened, marveling at the transformation. The pale, silent child had become vibrant again, not the same as before Elena's death, but different, older somehow, stronger. Grief had changed her, but it hadn't destroyed her. After dropping Sophia at her private school on the Upper East Side, Marco headed to his office. Vincent was waiting with reports, contracts needing signatures, decisions requiring his attention. The business world had continued spinning, even through his personal crisis. "Boss," Vincent said, sliding a folder across the desk. "The adoption record search you requested. We found her." Marco's hand froze over the folder. 3 months ago, he'd asked Vincent to locate Isabella discreetly. 3 months of careful investigation, following paper trails, navigating sealed records through legitimate channels. "Where is she?" Marco asked quietly. "Upstate New York. Small town called Beacon. She was adopted by David and Martha Chen. No relation to your Mrs. Chen. Good people. Teacher and a librarian. They renamed her Emma. Emma Chen. She's 17 now, senior in high school. Honor student. Plays violin. Wants to study medicine." Marco opened the folder, seeing photographs of a teenage girl with Elena's eyes and smile. His heart clenched. Does she know she's adopted? Yes. Open adoption in terms of her knowing. But she's never sought out information about her birth parents. According to what we could gather, she's had a good life. Happy. Stable. Marco stared at the photos. Emma, Isabella, Elena's first daughter, living a completely separate life, unaware that her birth mother had died, unaware she had a half-sister. "What do you want to do?" Vincent asked. Marco was quiet for a long moment, then he closed the folder. "Nothing. Not yet. She's 17. Applying to colleges. Building her future. Disrupting that now would be selfish." "You're sure?" "No," Marco admitted. "But I'm thinking about what Elena would want. She gave Isabella up to protect her, to give her a better life. That life seems good. Who am I to destroy that with painful truths? And Sophia? She has a right to know about her sister. When she's older," Marco decided. "When she's healed more. When she can process it without it damaging her recovery. For now, we keep this information safe. When the time is right, maybe when Emma is in college, more independent, we'll reach out. Gently. Give her the choice to connect or not. Vincent nodded, understanding. You've changed, boss. 3 months ago, you would have demanded immediate action. Marco smiled slightly. 3 months ago, I thought I could control everything. I've learned some things need time, patience, the right moment. That afternoon, Marco picked up Sophia from school and drove to Brooklyn. The route had become familiar. They made this trip 3 or 4 times a week now. Stella's kitchen had become their sanctuary, a place where Sophia felt close to her mother's memory without being overwhelmed by it. Kat was waiting for them, apron on, smile genuine. Over the past 3 months, she'd become more than just a waitress serving them meals. She'd become a friend, a bridge to Elena's past, someone who understood grief and healing. Ready for your breadstick lesson? Kat asked Sophia. So ready. Sophia bounced with excitement. In the kitchen, Stella had cleared a workspace. Kat tied an apron around Sophia's waist, comically large on her small frame, and set out ingredients. The secret to good breadsticks, Kat explained, is patience. You can't rush the dough. You have to let it rise in its own time. Marco watched from the doorway as Kat guided Sophia's hands through kneading the dough, explaining each step with patience and warmth. Sophia was completely engaged, asking questions, laughing when flour dusted her nose. She's good with her, Stella said, appearing beside Marco. Your little one has come so far. Thanks to all of you, Marco said. This place, Kat, the food, it saved her. Food is love made visible, Stella said simply, and that child needed to feel loved and safe again. We just provided the space for that. Later, while the dough was rising, Kat joined Marco at their usual booth. They'd fallen into an easy friendship over the past months, conversations about Sophia, about life, about healing. Kat had shared stories about her grandmother's better days, about her own dreams of maybe opening a small cooking school someday. Marco had opened up about the challenges of single fatherhood, of running a business while being present for his daughter. I visited Anna again yesterday, Kat said. She had a clear moment, asked about that nice Italian man who'd come to see her. I think she meant you. How is she? Fading, Kat admitted sadly, but peaceful. She talks about Elena sometimes. Happy memories mostly. She's glad to know Elena found love again before she died, that Sophia exists. Marco was quiet for a moment. I found Isabella, Elena's first daughter. Kat's eyes widened. You did? Where is she? Upstate? She's 17, happy, doing well. I'm not going to contact her, not yet. That must have been a hard decision. The right decisions usually are, Marco said. Elena gave her up to protect her. I have to respect that even now. Kat reached across the table, squeezing his hand briefly. You're a good man, Marco Valentino. Elena chose well. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not romance. Neither was ready for that. Might never be ready. But connection. Understanding. The possibility of something more someday if they both healed enough. Breadsticks are ready, Sophia called from the kitchen, breaking the moment. They spent the next hour eating warm breadsticks with marinara sauce, Sophia proudly explaining every step of the process. Other diners smiled at her enthusiasm. This place had become their extended family. Stella, Kat, even the regular customers who'd watched Sophia's transformation over the months. As evening fell and they prepared to leave, Sophia hugged Kat tightly. Thank you for teaching me. I'm going to make these for Papa every Sunday, like Mama used to make her special pasta. I think that's a beautiful tradition, Kat said, returning the hug. Your Mama would be so proud of you, Sophia. You're brave and strong and full of love. In the car heading home, Sophia was quiet, reflective. Papa? Yes, Princess? I still miss Mama every day, but it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. Is that okay? Marco's throat tightened. That's more than okay, baby. That's healing. Mama wouldn't want you to hurt forever. She'd want you to remember her with love, but also to keep living, keep growing, keep being happy. Kat says people we love become part of us, so Mama's still here in my heart in the things she taught me. Kat's very wise. Do you think, Sophia hesitated, do you think maybe someday Kat could be like, not Mama, nobody could be Mama, but like, family? Marco glanced at his daughter in the rear-view mirror. Would you like that? I think so. She makes me feel safe, like Mama used to. Different, but good. Then we'll see what happens, Marco said carefully. These things take time, but Kat is definitely our friend, and friends can become family in their own way. Sophia seemed satisfied with this answer, returning to looking out the window at the city lights. That night, after tucking Sophia into bed, Marco stood in his office with the folder Vincent had given him. He looked at Emma's photographs one more time. This girl who shared Sophia's blood, who had Elena's smile. Someday, he'd tell Sophia about her sister. Someday they'd reach out to Emma, give her the choice to know her history or not. But not today. Today was about consolidating the healing they'd already achieved. He filed the folder away in his safe, then pulled out his phone. He typed a message to Kat. "Thank you for everything. You've given Sophia something I couldn't, a connection to her mother that feels warm, instead of painful. I'm grateful." The response came a few minutes later. "She's given me something too. Purpose, joy, a reminder that helping others heal can heal yourself. Thank you for trusting me with her story." Marco smiled, pocketing his phone. Outside, snow continued to fall on Manhattan, covering the city in quiet white. Somewhere upstate, a 17-year-old girl was probably doing homework, unaware of the family she didn't know she had. Somewhere in a nursing home, an elderly woman was sleeping, dreaming perhaps of her friend Elena and Sunday pasta. And here, in this penthouse, a little girl was sleeping peacefully, her grief transforming slowly into memory, her pain becoming strength. The journey wasn't over. Grief didn't have an endpoint, just evolving stages. But they were moving forward, together. 3 months ago, Marco had thought his world was ending. Now he understood it was just changing. Painful, difficult change, but also necessary. Growth forged in loss. Elena would always be part of their story. Her recipes, her love, her memory woven into Sophia's healing. But they were also writing new chapters. With Kat, with Stella's kitchen, with this chosen family they'd found in the most unexpected place. And maybe that was the real lesson. That love didn't end with death. It transformed, continued, found new expressions. Elena's love lived on in Sophia's laughter, in shared recipes, in the kindness of strangers who became friends, in a bowl of pasta e fagioli that tasted like home, in breadsticks made with small hands and patient guidance, in the slow, steady process of learning to live again after loss. Marco turned off the lights in his office, checking on Sophia one more time before heading to his own room. She was curled up with the photograph of Elena, but her face was peaceful now, not anguished. Healing. They were both healing. And tomorrow, they'd wake up and take another small step forward, together, because that's what family did. Even when, especially when, that family was found in the most unexpected places.